Alright, so some people have been asking for this, a guide on how to play D&D. Where do I get started? And there's an overwhelming amount of resources out there, and so sometimes when you ask, how do I get started, people are like, oh, well, just Google it. Well, that's not helpful. There's literally millions of channels and things for Dungeons & Dragons, so I'm hoping to make, in 10, maybe 20 minutes, a simple guide where if you know nothing about Dungeons & Dragons, how to get started and how to get started playing. So, first, a couple terms. When we say D&D Dungeons & Dragons, know that a lot of people use the term interchangeably. The genre is called TTRPGs, or Tabletop Role-Playing Games. Dungeons & Dragons is a tabletop role-playing game, but sometimes people say, oh yeah, I play D&D, but they mean they play another TTRPG, such as Pathfinder, Vampire the Masquerade, Werewolf, Warhammer. So when we're talking about D&D in this particular video, we're talking about Dungeons & Dragons, arguably the most popular TTRPG, and I'm assuming if you're here you want to learn to play Dungeons & Dragons and not those other games. If you want to learn those other ones, you'll want to find a different video for those ones. Now, also important to note that we're talking about a specific edition. Dungeons & Dragons has been around for a long time, so you'll hear people use terms like AD&D or Advanced Dungeons & Dragons, 3.5, 2.5, 4E, 5E, these different things. All these mean are the editions, when it came out and like the rulebook basically being revised or remade for that edition. Everything in this video is going to be covering 5E, which as of this video being made is the most current edition, but there is a playtest going on for 1D&D, which will be, some people are calling it 5.5, some people are calling it 6, some people are calling it the next edition. We don't need to worry about any of that. For now, we're going to focus on D&D 5E. So, what do you need to get started? Well, I'm going to be showing a lot of stuff from D&D Beyond here because I believe D&D Beyond is probably one of the best resources. It is the official resource. A lot of people will tell you to start with the Player's Handbook, and obviously the Player's Handbook is the best place for all the information, but it is a little bit pricey, and I understand that that's not a cost that everyone can afford right now, and especially if you're not in the hobby yet, you don't want to drop $50 on something and read a 500-page book just to find out, this isn't for me. It is important to note, while you should read through the Player Handbook with all the information, most of the information isn't needed to get started, and that's what this guide is for, that we're going to get right into what you need to know to actually play the game. So D&D is a cooperative storytelling game. It's important to remember cooperative is the key word there. You're playing with the other players to accomplish something, and that something is to tell a story. Now that story might be to steal from a dragon, or to overthrow the evil dictator, or to sit around the tavern and have great stories to tell. What that story is depends on you, but you are friends with everyone. You're not trying to beat them. It's not a winning-losing situation. Your goal should never be, I'm going to beat that player. It should be, I'm going to tell a good story with those people. So keep in mind, it is a cooperative storytelling game. Now you hear the term DM, Dungeon Master. They're typically the one who is controlling the game and will be doing most of the storytelling from what's happening. Your storytelling as a player will be what your character is doing in that story. So, let's say you can't get the Player's Handbook, you don't want to read it all, understandably. Let's use a different resource. On D&D Beyond, there is a step-by-step character creation, as well as there is a basic rules for combat and basic rules for the game. These are all you basically need to get started. In fact, I suggest you build your character on D&D Beyond because it is very simple on there, and if you're starting in a new game and you're just level 1, you won't need a lot of the extra stuff. I will say I'm not sponsored by D&D Beyond, and I will say one of the downsides is they don't give you a lot of free stuff. A lot of the character options are locked behind a paywall, and you'll have to pay for them. But you won't need a lot of those just to start. As you start making characters and diving deeper into it, it's possible you'll want those things, but we don't want to get too crazy a start, right? This is a guide for someone who's never done this before. They've never done anything with it. We're going to stick to the basics. So we can see here to create a character, there is about 6 steps, and if you scroll, there's a lot of information here. Now, also important to note, every game is going to be different. Some people will request that you make the character at the table following their rules. Some people don't mind if you come to the table with a character. For this, we're going to kind of build a character together right now and assume that we're looking for a game that is new player friendly, that's going to let you just come with a character you've already made that just follows all the basic rules. Remember that a DM can say anything. They can say, I want your characters to have double stats. I want your characters to have 6 levels. They can tell you whatever. But we're going to stick to basic and assume we're going to try and find a game where someone's just teaching you the game, or you're playing through a very basic campaign and you're just going to follow all the rules kind of as written. So you can see there's a lot to read here, but a lot of that you won't need because D&D Beyond has a character building set built right into it that makes it super easy. So we're just going to put up here, we're going to make a test character, and you're going to get a lot of different boxes here. And honestly, again, we're going to ignore most of this because we don't want to get too crazy. So we'll see there's Homebrew, Critical Role, Magic, Eberron, Rick and Morty, Non-Core. We're going to uncheck all those boxes. We don't need any of the extras. We want to make sure that dice rolling is enabled. Optional features, I will say that you probably will want these checked, and let's talk about the optional features now. So the first part of building your character, the part we're just about ready to get to, is you're going to want to pick a race. As you can see here, I grabbed just a random race pulled up here. We have the dwarf. If you have the actual book, you'll see it tells you a little bit about the character, a little bit of lore, just some information to help you kind of get into the characters. You can see some general information like dwarves are slow to trust certain groups. Again, all this can change depending on what game you're playing in, so this, you can ignore 90% of this. None of this is really needed because DMs are going to all have different games and most of it probably won't be applicable. Same thing with names. There's some suggestions if you want to use them. You don't have to use them. But we see that if you play a dwarf, you get 2 to your constitution. And if you're playing a hill dwarf, you'll get 1 to wisdom. Again, I know I'm kind of jumping ahead there. This is what this button allows you to do. They released a book that allows you to optionally change and customize those things of your character. I suggest you check those so you can make your character more what you want your character to be, and it makes your race matter a little bit less. Your advancement type is going to be milestone or XP. That's going to depend on your DM. I prefer milestone, but again, your DM is going to tell you which one you're using. Fixed point, hit point type, fixed or manual. What this means is that when you level up, your hit points are supposed to increase by an amount, but it can be either like you roll your dice for that amount, or you might just say, I would choose the average and only get the average. That's, again, going to be up to your DM. For now, we're just going to say fixed. We're going to take the average. We're going to make this as easy as possible. We have prerequisites, feats, and multi-class requirements. I've turned both these off. Feats are another part of character building, and they are important if you're going to be building certain builds. Certain feats make weapons more usable or change the way characters work. They are massively powerful in some instances, and in other instances, they're borderline useless. But most characters, unless you're playing a human, a certain variant human, don't get feats until level 4, so we're not going to worry about that for now. We don't care about feats for now. We're staying very, very basic. Show scaled level, we're going to leave that on. You don't need to worry about this at all, so don't worry about that. Encumbrance type, I have played in probably hundreds of D&D games and have literally never seen anyone use encumbrance ever. You can leave it on, you can turn it off, it doesn't matter. Chances are your DM will not bring up encumbrance type. They will not bring up coin weight. Modifiers, this is just a preference, whether you want your modifiers on top or scores on top, so you can just leave it as is for now. And that's all you need to do there. You click the next arrow, and now we're going to get to the races. Now you're going to see, wait a second, there's more D&D races than this. Yes, there are, but again, there's only so many that you get for free, and because we want to do this for free and quickly and easily, we're going to just stick to what's free and easily available to us. So basically, for your first character, just find what's cool. Each character is going to have some different things, like if we go to a half-orc, for example, we get dark vision that lets you see better in the dark. You get proficiency in intimidation. You get these savage attacks. But if you choose to go with, say, a dragonborn, then you get like these draconic ancestries you can go through. A lot of this matters very little. It will matter for some role play and occasionally, like if you're doing a special build or things like that. Again, don't worry about that. Find what's cool, what's fun, what you want to experience, and what you want to play as. At level 1, it doesn't matter. And chances are your first character isn't going to be the character you stick with for the rest of your life, right? You're going to make hundreds of characters after this if you like it. So don't get caught up on the race like, oh, which one's the best for this? Which one's the best for that? Just choose what's the most fun to you. For this instance, we're going to grab a, let's say an elf. Let's just go with a wood elf. We can see we get that dark vision, we get proficiency in perception, we have fey ancestry, we get this trance, so you get all these cool little things for being an elf. But again, it doesn't matter. If you don't think elves are cool and you want to be a half-orc, be a half-orc. There used to be this thing where people are like, oh, well, if you want to be a barbarian, you have to be a Goliath because they have the best stats for that. But now that you can customize your origins and all that, that doesn't matter. That's all out the window. Don't worry about that. Choose what is cool to you. Once you have a race, if you choose to have the origin manager, you can go in here and replace these different things. If you check the boxes, you'll see as I check them all, then it will let me go in here and say, okay, I want to increase my constitution by 2, and I want to have one of these skills. All these things, they do matter, but they're not going to matter so much at level 1. So again, choose what is cool. You get this concept for your character. I'm making an elf, so I'm just going to stick classic. We're going to make an elf ranger, right? We're going to make Legolas or an archer. So if he's going to be that, we want him to be really good at dexterity, right? Because dexterity is really important for shooting a bow. And then for his origin proficiency, these are your skills. So the skill list we'll get to a little bit later. We'll see like a full chart, but essentially choosing a skill means that you're better at that skill. So when those things come up, like for example, if you try and steal something, your DM might say, well, you need sleight of hand for stealing that. If you're trying to cure someone, you might need a medicine roll. The DM will tell you what you're rolling, so you don't need to figure out like, oh, which one of these do I need for these situations. Your DM will tell you what you're rolling. Your only job here really is to figure out, what do I want my character to be good at? What is my mind for? So he's going to be an archer, so he's going to be really good at seeing things. So perception, he's really good at perceiving things. Languages, sorry about that. Languages, I'm going to say 99.9% of the time don't matter. Most DMs are going to hand wave and say everyone speaks the language. Occasionally you might run into the random thing where someone speaks a language that you don't understand. It's very rare. So languages are more of a flavor thing. This is, again, what's cool to you. So you say, okay, well, my elf, you know, he spent a lot of time with the dwarves, Legolas, right? So he knows dwarvish. And you know what? He's really good at hunting abominations against nature. So he, you know, learned to deal with demons, let's say, or dragons. The dragons burning down the trees, right? So we learned dragon. Again, this is flavor. This is for you. You don't need to think too much about this. You get one more ability score. We already chose dexterity. So, you know, I also want him to be a charismatic elf. Again, we're going through this quickly because at level 1, it really doesn't matter much. We're just getting the foundation in so you can get into the game and play. The biggest choice you're going to have to make is your class, and this one is going to matter the most. You're going to want to read each one of these classes, but we'll go down it very quickly and generally to give you an idea. Barbarians, their whole shtick is they get a rage so they can shrug off damage, do huge damage. They're big, beefy, frontline, no armor wearing monsters. Bards, they are kind of like the support people put them in the role of. They get different spells that can boost people up. They can viciously mock enemies to drop down their defenses. They can give extra dice to other players in certain roles. If you like supporting players rather than being on the front line, there's the Bard. The Cleric people usually put into the box of they're the healer, and Clerics are decent healers. In fact, there's whole parts for healing that you'll, again, probably not have to worry about at level 1. But if you want to play a healer, Clerics are okay for that, but they're also spellcasters. If you want divine magic, if you want to be smiting people in the name of your god, Clerics. Druids, shape-shifting and nature magic. They're kind of a mix between a warrior and a cleric. You know, they don't wear quite as heavy armor. So if you want to turn in animals, use nature magic, druids. Fighters can be really anything you want them to be except for spellcasters. They can be archers, they can be frontline, you know, heavy tanks with shield and sword, they can be two-handed champions. If you want to be on the front lines and dish out some damage, fighters where it's at. Monk is kind of a themed class. They're agile, I run around, I punch really fast, they use no weapons sometimes, or they'll use like a staff and then no weapon. Monks aren't my favorite, but they're fun for the fantasy. So if that's the fantasy, if you want to be Jet Li, flying across, kicking people, running up walls, excuse me, that's the one for you. Paladins, knight in shining armor, right? You're going to have holy magic, you're going to be smiting people. The whole mechanic is their divine smite. They do huge damage, so if you want to be on the front lines, you want to do damage, and you want to be showing off, you know, I'm zealous for my god, paladins. Rangers, ironically, they're not always bow users. Rangers are kind of like your, I guess, scouts. You know, they're going in and out of forests, you know terrains really well, you know certain enemies really well. You're the expert of the forest. Rogue kind of needs no explanation. You know, they're the thieves, they're the backstabbers, they're the criminals, they're the pickpockets. If you want to, their whole gimmick is they do one attack per turn, but it does big damage. So if you want to do big damage and sneak around in the shadows, rogue. Sorcerers and wizards and warlocks are the big spellcasters. Cleric can be fit in there too, but that's a whole nother debate. Wizards are usually the one that I recommend because they're just straightforward. You choose the spells you want, you choose kind of the school of magic you want, and you expertise in that. Sorcerers are a little bit more complex, and they have like a lot of points and other moving parts to them, so I would recommend if you want to be a spellcaster, either just be a wizard, or there's the warlock. They get way less spell slots, but they come back faster, and they have like, you know, the cool demon magic or the eldritch blast, you know, the eldritch horror. So if you want to be a spellcaster, wizard is where it's at. Very nice, simple, straightforward, cast your spells. If you want to flavor it a little bit more, look deeply into the warlock or the sorcerer. We're just going to select ranger because that's what we're going with. We have one level in ranger. Again, we choose our proficiency, so I want my ranger to be good. He's insightful, really good at stealth, and really good at survival. Again, those won't matter a whole lot at level 1, but figuring out what you want your character to be. They get a special ability here. Not everyone gets this. This is a ranger special ability, so again, find out what your favorite enemy is, what you want to go against. None of this matters. Natural Explorer, so this is where you're the expert. So mine is an expert of the forest, so he's going to get perks in there. When you're choosing your class, make sure you read through all this because it will matter for the game. But that's as simple as it is. Now we just go into the ability scores. So this is going to, again, depend on your DM. Typically, you'll have a thing where you roll the dice for these, and you'll say, okay, well, I got, 16, 10, 11, 12, 13. But they might also have you choose standard array or point buy. I'm going to recommend standard array. Again, it's the standard, it's the most simple, you don't have to roll anything, you just get right into it. It gives you a few numbers, and it's really easy to put them in the slots. So we want our character to be really dexterous, so boom, we're going to go 15 dexterity there. We want our character to have good charisma, so that's going to get the next one. We want them to be good at constitution. They're not going to be super wise, so that's what we're going to put our lower stat there. Or on intelligent wisdom, we're going to go 10, 12, boom, character's made. These numbers matter the most, so I recommend if you're doing this, you're going to go to the player handbook, and we're going to look at the, scroll down, and we will see the ability score summary, and we'll see dexterity is the most important for rangers. And it'll tell us like, okay, constitution is your health, your stamina, your vital force. So that's important for everyone. So once you decide your class, come look at the step-by-step characters and see which stats are important for your character so you make sure those ones are the highest. If they're the most important for you, you want them to be the highest. Kind of simple, but it is important. Once you have those, this is what people skip over a whole lot, but this is the most fun part of the character. This is your background. So you want to be able to say, and this is where you'll have a few options. You can buy other ones, but really you can customize your background. You can come from anything. You make up any story you want as long as your DM accepts it. But let's say mine was a soldier. Now, nice, easy background. You'll see that you get a little bit of story to give your character a little bit more flavor. You'll get different things. Some get like gaming sets, some get instruments. That is flavor. That doesn't matter too much. But what does matter is you get a background feature, and every background gives you a special feature. So in this case, soldiers loyal to your former military organization recognize your authority and influence. So that's a fun RP flavor. But here's what people skip over that I really like. When you choose a background, it'll give you suggested characteristics, and this will help you with the actual role-playing part of the game. A lot of people are really uncomfortable with role-playing when they first start. Like, I don't know how to be my character, because it's really awkward, and they think, oh, I have to do the voices like, oh, thee and thou. No. This is where you are going to be. So I choose 2 personality traits. This will help me figure out my character. I'm always polite and respectful. Now I know how to interact with people. I'm always polite and respectful. Then we choose another one. How about I face problems head on? A simple, direct solution is the best path to success. Boom. Now I have a little bit of my character's personality, so I know when my DM asks me, well, what was your character doing, or how does your character react? Well, we know that they're polite and respectful, and we know that they're going to face the problem head on. Now we have some ideals. We can choose as many as we want, but let's just choose one. I'm going to recommend you're going to see good, chaotic, evil in here. Evil characters are fun, but I don't recommend playing an evil character to start. And that is because there's a lot that goes into the nuances, and a lot of people do it wrong, and they just go and try and kill the party and ruin everyone's fun. You don't want to do that. Be good. It's very easy to say, I'm a law-abiding citizen and I want to do what's good for the world. It makes it, again, easy for your first character. So we're going to go the greater good. Our law is to lay down our lives in defense of other. Very simple ideal that helps you always know what you're going to be doing. Bonds. Let's see, this is how you bond with other people, or the bonds you have with your party and the world. I fight for those who cannot fight for themselves. Very simple, again, but it's going to help you in those roleplay. When you see, oh, how do I react to this morally gray situation? Well, I'm going to do what's for the greater good, and I'm going to fight for the people who can't fight for themselves. And then a flaw. Here we go. I obey the law even if the law causes misery. We're lawful good. If that's the law, then we're going to obey it. Now we know how our character interacts with the world. Again, you can customize these and come up with them as you want to, but if you just want to get started, very basic, that's an easy way to do it. Now, starting equipment, you can choose gold and choose all your equipment. Don't do that, it's too hard. Just choose the basic, simple, what you want, what looks cool, add the starting equipment. Now you'll want to go in here and wield it, make sure you actually put it on, right? We got to put on our armor, put on our longbow, and boom, our character's made, and now our character sheet is filled out, and this is what you're going to have up when you're actually playing the game. And it does everything for you. So when your DM says, do an acrobatics check, well, here you go. Here's your acrobatics check. You have a +3 to it, so you roll a 1d20 plus 3. If they say roll a religion, you get 1d20 minus 1. You have all the things right here, nice and easy for you to see. You have savings throw. Again, you don't need to know about this until your DM says. Your DM will say, do a dexterity savings throw for me. Okay, dexterity savings throw. I have 1d20 plus 5. Very simple. You're going to be using your d20 a whole lot. All the other information is here for you, and it breaks it down for you when you actually get into combat. You have all your attacks, your actions. You're going to have just this whole main page up, and it's wonderful. So that gets you into making the character. Next video, we're going to talk about what you actually do on your turn. I wanted to keep this under 20 minutes. I see we're just at 25 minutes. I'm sorry we went a little bit over, but that's all it took. 20 minutes to make a good, simple character to get started, and that's half the battle. We'll do the other half in another video. Thank you so much.